All right, people. Now, I'm not sure if anybody has ever heard of Maximum Fun. Sounds fun. But this is a podcast network, and it says it's becoming a worker owned co op. So this was very interesting to come across my view. I'm like, what in the world? A podcast platform that's now a co op, and it's called Maximum Fun. And I'm not sure if a lot of other media companies or corporate media will ever cover this because it kind of goes slightly against the corporate narrative of having ownership in a very few hands. This one is having ownership in many hands, in the workers' hands. So I don't think that a lot of people are going to be talking about this, but I hope a lot of other people in independent media actually talk about this and maybe try to have some of the people from Maximum Fun over. I would like to, if anybody from Maximum Fun gets a hold of this, I would like to have you on to actually talk about this new venture that you're going into of having worker ownership. I actually am a fan of worker ownership because that means that you guys are going into a more of an egalitarian, equitable, and equal type of workplace, which I am a fan of. I'm a socialist, so that I'm a fan of that. So if you guys, would like to reach out, then please feel free to reach out. I'm also on Twitter, by the way. So the article starts off, says Maximum Fun owner Jesse Thorne is selling the podcast company that he founded almost 20 years ago. Rather than surrendering the network to a big tech company or media conglomerate, he is selling it back to its workers. Maximum Fun is best known for distributing hit shows like the McElroy family's My Brother, and Me. Will become one of the only worker-owned co-ops in media. That means that full-time employees can take a stake in the ownership of Maximum Fun, earn a share of profits, and have greater input in overall company decision-making. The podcast network follows in the footsteps of Defector Media, an employee-owned company founded by former Deadspin writers who quit en masse due to disputes with owner G.O. Media. Quote, for the first 10 to 12 years, I was working 60 or 70 hours a week and making $16,000 a year. And since I have kids, it's still working 7 jobs at once. When some family situations came up that were really intense, I just thought, I can't maintain this. Despite Thorne's initial struggles, Maximum Fun now distributes more than 40 podcasts, which have cultivated a dedicated fan base. Thorne said that over the years, some tech companies have expressed interest in acquiring Maximum Fun, though he wouldn't reveal which companies. In the past, he had a few meetings about potential acquisitions, which never moved past rudimentary stage. But when Thorne decided that he wanted to relinquish ownership, he considered the avenues once again. So this is a very interesting thing that actually happened. And I'm sitting here going, well, this is interesting. A media company that puts out different podcasts. It's not like Spotify. It's not like Apple. It's not like iHeart. And, they are similar like that, but they're going employee owned, which is something that I am a big fan of. So I thought this would be interesting, and I wanted to share this all with you. But there's also a video that I want to share as well. And I thought this to be very interesting. Because the thing is that one of the problems that those of us at independent media have is that you have all this power at the top, right? And because you have all that power at the top, what ends up happening? Well, then the people who are working don't have a say. And then on top of that, they're influenced by the big corporations that advertise. And so because they're influenced by that, they shift their narrative, they shift their focus in a pro-corporate narrative. Versus if it's more geared towards the workers, especially if they are a working class, like all of us are, well, then guess what? They're going to keep their focus more on the real issues. Now, this is not to say that it doesn't have its flaws, and people are definitely flawed. But the thing is that having a company that's a podcast company that's worker-owned, worker-centered is something that is quite different from the political landscape that we have, the information landscape that we have too. And so I think this is something that a lot of us should, jump at the chance to even talk about or even get on board with, right? Because if you have a company like this that sets the stage, that sets an example, then this could happen for a lot more people. And if this starts to gain more steam, then a lot more workers will be on board for things like this. This isn't necessarily the socialist revolution that we talk about, that we want. But look, we're all in favor of unions as long as union leadership goes by the rule of the rank and file, of course. But we are in favor of unions. But why are we in favor of unions, right? We want unions because they are worker power in order to tell the owners what their wishes are so that there's at least a balance, right? But a lot of times that balance is usually kind of cattywampus, right? You have these owners, what I like to call the corporate dictators, that hold the cards. And so the workers, they also hold some cards too, but the owners typically also have the government in their pocket. But if the workers are the owners, then the need for unionization goes away because the workers literally hold the cards, the entire deck. And so I think that's something that is, something that a lot of us can get behind. Because the more worker-owned businesses that you have, then guess what? Then the more worker-owned businesses will be able to say, well, we are more in favor of just everyone having equal footing across the board when it comes to education, healthcare, housing, all these different things. Because there's not a winner take all, right? It's like we all win, we all share. And I think that's the point, right? So let me get to this video. And they have their own YouTube channel. I had no idea. I'm just now finding out about this company. But they have their own YouTube channel, and they actually put out this release on their YouTube channel. So let's take a look.
Hey, it's Jesse, the owner of Maximum Fun, or the current owner of Maximum Fun, because I have a big announcement. I'm not going to be the owner of Maximum Fun anymore. Or actually, to be completely accurate, I am going to become, along with all of my colleagues here at Max Fun, an employee owner of Maximum Fun, because we are about to become a 100% worker-owned cooperative. So yeah, I'll be owner of Maximum Fun.
And I will too. And me.
And me.
And so will I.
This guy.
And I will too.
All of us. When you join Maximum Fun, you're directly supporting the people who make the podcast that you love. And you're supporting all the folks who work behind the scenes.
Now, I could personally break down how all this is going to work for you, but I would rather that we do it together.
Let me settle in here.
Maximum Fun is going to be
Completely owned by its employees.
I'll be doing the same job I do every day.
And we'll be working on the same great shows. We'll just get to have a little bit of a say in some of the bigger decisions now.
And we, the employees, will be electing the board of directors.
Jesse's not going anywhere. Our managing director, Bikram, not going anywhere.
But now he's going to report to the board, and the board represents all of us. The board is in charge of guiding the ship,
overseeing management, and making all of the big decisions.
And when the company's in the black at the end of the year, then
We all have a stake in that.
Every employee of Maximum Fun who wants to join this co-op will own the company together.
We got called in for this big meeting in person, sort of during the pandemic. And once Jesse got up to talk, I went, oh, Jesse's going to sell the company. And I wasn't wrong, but I was a little bit wrong. I thought he was going to sell it to some big network, some conglomerate, but that is not what he wanted to do. He wanted to have the company become a co-op.
I know that Jesse could have if he'd wanted to. He could have sold us to, Sirius or iHeartMedia, or I don't know if I'm supposed to be naming names or not, but
I've worked for enormous media conglomerates and just been an invisible cog in the system. And this is the complete opposite of that.
A lot of companies in the podcast industry try to maximize profits or get the biggest celebrities or do what's going to make them the most money. And Maximum Fun, I think, has always tried to do what feels right.
I know that what I do here matters to me, to my coworkers, and to the people who enjoy what I do.
I think the nature of cooperatives is that they are sustainable because the people for whom the existence of the company matters the most are the ones making all of the key decisions.
We care more. We're all part of it. We have all got skin in the game.
If I do good work and my colleagues do good work, it will all benefit us directly.
And let me just say, this is a pretty big deal. There aren't any other podcast companies that we know of out there working this way. There's barely any media companies out there working this way. We're really proud of this.
I've worked in business a long time, and I've also tried to figure out how to work in business and feel good about myself. And I feel so great about this.
And you know what? Honestly, frankly, we couldn't have done it without you.
I'm really excited about this, and I hope you are too.
If you think this is as cool as I do, I hope you'll do what you can to back us up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for making it possible.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
so very much.
Never happened at Sirius.
Oh man, that was funny. That last part. But yeah, so this was something that, what do you guys think? Because I think this is a very positive direction. And this news, shout out to Roger Meadows, who's also in the chat. And of course, when we talk about dictatorship of the proletariat, right? We talk about, workers owning the means of production, and then also being able to just, have a say, because we are the majority, a say over not only what happens in our workplace, but also what happens in our government. Because as we all know, the government does not listen to us. And because the government does not listen to us, none of what we actually want gets done. None of what we actually want gets passed. And so we're always left, holding the doo-doo covered stick, so to speak, right? And so we're constantly, trying to fight in order to have something better for ourselves, but it never happens. It only happens for the people at the top. And so that's one of the reasons why I think it's deeply important for us to see, companies like this, because a lot of times we don't see this a lot. And, talking about this just reminded me of a study that was done. And this was a study that was shown it was out of Cambridge, where it talks about how there is a lot of uh, of interest taken as to what the corporate dictators have to say. But when it comes to us, there's really nothing that they really want to hear from us, because we're not the ones that are giving them the money to stay in office like they particularly want. So here is, let me show. This is out of Cambridge. So this is basically, a talk about perspective on politics. And so on the axis, as you said, you see predicted probability of adoption, and then percent of cases, and then percent of favoring proposed policy change. And this is the average citizens. And as you guys can see here, let me make sure this is big enough for you guys to see. It shows that it really doesn't go up much as far as, from the voters to politicians. They don't really listen to us. But then when you go to the upper echelons of society, the rich, the super wealthy, they have a huge say, right, into what gets done by the policies that they want. And so this is something that people just don't realize until they really start to become more politically astute and see what's going on. And so I think this is why it's such a good thing to take a look at things like this. But this is something that is, deeply important. And this is why when it comes to worker-owned businesses, this means that the workers will, by and large, there will be less of a gulf between, as far as, the lowest paid worker and the highest paid worker, when in reality, they all have a say in the company. So I think that that's, something that is important to talk about. So